everyone, and welcome to my channel, Babbling Books. If it's your first time here, my name is Elaine. So I wasn't planning on doing a book haul video, but I got a hair waiver, excuse me, and my kids are having an award ceremony and a graduation ceremony at the end of this week. So I wanted to practice with it because, as you probably know, if you've watched multiple videos of mine, I usually just put my hair in a clip. So I wanted to practice and make sure that I could use it. And it turned out really cute and I didn't want to waste it. And so I realized that I actually have purchased enough books over the last month or two to do a book haul video. So let's get into it. Most of these are actually thrillers with some horror elements. A few have a little bit of a supernatural bent toward them, and some are adults, some are YA. And the first one is by an author that everyone is probably very familiar with, and that's Lois Duncan. I think that I read I Know What You Did Last Summer, maybe 20 years ago, and I thought it was pretty good. So I came across this when I was looking for some YA thriller horrors, and I ordered it. I did not realize that this was copyrighted in 1978. I read a few pages when I received it, and you can tell that it's an older book. The characters are named like Sue and Betty. And so it definitely has a little bit of a classic vibe to it. But the premise is a group of high school students decide that they are going to murder their high school English teacher as a group, that they're going to kill him. And he is an insufferable man, so I understand the temptation why they want to murder him. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun to read, but just be aware it definitely has an old school vibe to it. And then we have One Was Lost by Natalie D. Richards. So while on a mandatory senior field trip, a flash flood cuts off Sarah and 3 classmates from their group with no way to call for help. But they are not as alone as they thought. Someone is stalking them through the woods, drugging them, stealing their supplies, and writing on their skin. So this is definitely horror. It's YA, and has that survival horror element that I love, because they are literally being stalked through the woods. So that's what I've been looking for recently. So I'm probably going to be reading that one really soon. And then we have This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. So this is about 5 teenage boys who went out hunting, and only 4 of them return. And the boys will not say who fired the shot that killed their friend. The main character is Kate Marino. She is a senior who's doing an internship at the district attorney's office, and she starts digging into this case and figuring out what happened. So YA horror. And then we have The Dry by Jane Harper. So this one is a murder mystery. It's not YA, and the main character is federal agent Aaron Falk. So he has not been back to his hometown since, it says, he and his father were run out of town 20 years ago. Let's see. So Falk gets word that his best friend Luke is dead, and his entire family has been murdered. And Falk receives a note that says, "Luke lied. You lied. Be at the funeral." And he obviously goes back home and ends up trying to solve his friend's murder. And there's probably a side mystery of whatever the note was referring to. So that sounded really good. Force of Nature by Jane Harper. This is, the main character is also Agent Falk. 5 colleagues are forced to go on a corporate retreat into the wilderness. And one of the women doesn't come out of the woods, and each of her companions tells a slightly different story. and Agent Falk is sent to investigate and figure out what happened to this woman. I love murders that take place in the woods. Gretchen McNeil, this book is called 10. This is supposed to be slightly similar to, and then there was one by Agatha Christie, and it takes place on an island, so I think it must be a lot like The Guest List with Lucy Foley as well. But this is YA. Let's see. 3 days on Henry Island at an exclusive house party. Best friends Meg and Minnie each have their own reason for wanting to be here. But what they expect is definitely not what they get. Suddenly people are dying, and with a storm raging outside, they are cut off from the outside world. So a mystery that takes place on an island. Lots of people being killed. Sounds entertaining. And then we have These Witches Don't Burn. I will be honest with you, that title is fantastic and the cover is gorgeous. So this is a supernatural YA thriller by Isabel Sterling. Let's see. The main character is Hannah. So Hannah is a teenager and she's an elemental witch in Salem, Massachusetts. Her magic must be kept a secret, and if she is caught using it in front of a reg, which is a non-magical person, she could lose it. Let's see here. Evidence of dark magic appears all over Salem. Hannah's sure it's the work of a deadly blood witch, but her coven is less convinced. So Hannah is forced to team up with the last person she wants to see, her ex-girlfriend Veronica, who is also an elemental witch. That sounds like it's a ton of fun. I love reading books about witches. Oh, so this is a little different. So this is a interconnected short story collection. It's sci-fi and it's by Robert Silverberg and it's called The World Inside. So each chapter is about a different person, but all of humanity lives inside these massive high rises. There's no reason to leave the high rise. Everything that you possibly could want is inside this building. Most people, unless they are elevated in society, very rarely even go beyond 10 floors of where they were born. Sometimes you will be able to go to a different high rise. The book does take place on different floors, so you'll have different main characters that are in different class structures. The interesting thing about this is in this world, procreation is important. There is no population control. Why would there be when you can build high rises that are 500-600 stories? People can just leave their floor and go to a different one and just have sex with whoever, someone's wife, someone's husband. It's very, sex is just this open, accepted thing that everyone should be doing because the main goal is procreation, procreation, procreation. So this is a very much a social exploration rather than being character driven or even plot driven. It just explores the social aspects of people living in such tight quarters, classism, overpopulation, and different things like that. And I want to say this is an older book. It was written around the time where people were, 1971, where people were, talking about different types of politics and exploring the idea that maybe communism or socialism would be the right political structure for the United States. So it's a very interesting book. I read a few of the stories already, and I will say they're kind of slow, but they're very interesting. And then we have The Lost Causes by Alyssa Embry Schwartz. So this is about a group of outcasts, which are my favorite type of teenagers to read about. And they are taken by the FBI, and the FBI erases the teens' past problems and unlocks a psychic ability within each of them. In return, all they have to do is help find the killer who's turned their small town upside down. And it says right here, misfits, outcasts, and the only ones who can find a killer. That pretty much does sum up the whole book. I love reading about rebellious characters and teenage outcast. I think that probably started with my love of The Outsiders. But I think that that's going to be a really entertaining read. And then we have Here Lies Daniel Tate by Kristen Terrell. So 10-year-old Daniel Tate went missing, and he stayed missing with no trace of his whereabouts for 6 years. And he resurfaces, and he's welcomed back home by his family. But Daniel Tate is not Daniel Tate. It's a con artist, a teenage con artist. And that's not a spoiler, that's on the back of the book. But what this Daniel Tate doesn't know is that perhaps he has picked the wrong family to work a con on. So this one definitely has some horror elements. And I think that that's going to be a really, really good read. And then we have 2 books that have been all over Book Talk and all over Instagram and BookTube. And that's Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. So I actually have book 1 and book 2. This one is the first. So you can go to a cafe in Tokyo, and the owners of this cafe have been brewing this special coffee for over 100 years. And you have to sit in a special chair and drink this special coffee, and you can go back in time, but you must return before the coffee gets cold. And this one is 4 stories. I have no idea if they're interconnected or if that would be like 4 short stories or if it's just a novel. So I'm really looking forward to reading that one. And this is more of the same. But those must be very, very good because everybody has been talking about them. And then we have The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I don't know about everybody else, but when I'm like scrolling on Facebook and one of those articles crops up and it's like disturbing things people found in their homes during renovation or their new homes or whatnot. And that's sort of what this is like. Kara finds the words, "Pray that they are hungry," in a mysterious bunker that she's discovered behind a hole in the wall of her uncle's house. Let's see. Oh, only to discover that this bunker holds portals to countless alternate realities. That sounds so good. I love books that have alternate realities. I can't, that would be a spoiler. But anyway, this is something I'm very, very excited to read. And then we have They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman. So this is about a group of elite upper class high school students. And a year ago, Jill's best friend was killed by her boyfriend. And then during Jill's senior year, she receives a text saying that the boyfriend is innocent. And so Jill starts to look into her best friend's murder and figure out who actually killed her. So another YA murder mystery thriller. And then we have The Counselors by Jessica Goodman. I am really hoping that this is going to have Friday the 13th vibes. As you can see, this is like a pretty cool cover. So basically you have a girl that's a camp counselor, but this camp is only for upper class, the high echelon teenagers. The main character is a townie, and I want to say it says the tuition to go to this summer camp is like a 5-figure tuition. And murders start taking place, and they're trying to figure out who's killing who. So that one looked good. And then we have Dark and Shallow Lies by Jenny Myers Cyan. So, Oh, this one takes place in La Cache, Louisiana. I love books that take place in Louisiana. Let's see. Oh, so this town is the self-proclaimed psychic capital of the world. The main character, Gray, her best friend, Alora, disappeared 6 months earlier. And Gray cannot figure out why in a town that's supposedly full of psychics that nobody can figure out what has happened to her best friend. So she starts to look into her best friend's murder. So another YA thriller. And we have Time Will Tell by Barry Lyga. So if you have never read anything by Barry Lyga, I highly, highly recommend his books. He has a series called I Hunt Killers, and the main character is named Jasper Dent. And Jasper Dent's father was a prolific serial killer, and he taught his son Jasper how to be a serial killer. So when Jasper is a senior in high school, another serial killer starts killing people, and Jasper decides he's going to use these skills to hunt down this killer. So that is an excellent YA trilogy. I really recommend that you read it. But this one is called Time Will Tell. And 4 teens dig up their parents' time capsule that they buried in 1986. And inside this time capsule, there is a bloody knife with a note that says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kill anyone." So they set out to figure out if one of their parents is a murderer, who they killed, and all of those good things. I'm sure they find so many secrets about their parents, which I think sounds like that would be very thrilling to read. And somehow I have misplaced a book. Oh, bear with me a minute. I'm missing one of the Kingfisher books. I'll just insert a picture up here. I must have walked off with it. So this book is about a girl named Mouse, and her father asks her to go clean out the grandmother's home. And the grandmother is a hoarder. And Mouse finds like journal entries that seem like psychotic ravings. But then these creatures that were written about in the journal, Mouse actually starts to see them, and she realizes that the things in this journal may in fact be real. So this is another one that is, I'm pretty sure these are YA. I think Kingfisher writes YA horror. So these look, all of his books look really good actually, but these are the first 2 I've decided to start with. So that's it. So let me know if you have read any of these. Let me know what you thought of them. If you have any recommendations for YA horror, survival horror, anything that's sort of like a slasher horror, Friday the 13th kind of vibes, I would be very interested in reading those. So thank you very much for clicking on my video. Bye.